Welcome to Flagon Talk, which is a weekly podcast where a few random people get together and talk all things tabletop RPG and answer your questions about D&D and other related games. Today's topic is how to get started in D&D. I'm friendly neighborhood dungeon mom and am joined by
Lao Fang CO, but just call me Lao.
Lau. We're gonna go with Lau because I am not gonna remember that and butcher his name horribly.
Everyone does.
So let's get to some questions. These questions were submitted by the Dungeons and Flagons Discord community. We sent out a poll and we got some really good questions. I was very excited about the questions that we got. So our first question comes from Noah Grand, and he asks, "How is playing online different than playing in person? How many of you do both?"
I love this question so much because I feel like you play a whole bunch of AL online, and I basically do like D&D solely in person. So I think this is a perfect first question for us.
Oh yeah, I play a little bit in person, not as much as I would like. I would love to play more, but beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah.
And I love playing online. Both have amazing pros and cons.
Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with all that. And I guess for generally, we're gonna just general D, or basically not specifically D&D, but just any RPG system out there. Everyone's like, they're tabletop RPGs, but you don't have to have real tabletop. So I guess, friendly, what would you say your favorite things about playing online, since you have a little bit more experience with that, and the Dungeons and Dragons community is a mostly online group?
Oh yeah, no, totally. The best thing I think about playing online is it is extremely accessible. All you need is a computer and Wi-Fi. And a decent. I mean, and it doesn't even need to be a decent Wi-Fi. It can be, just your bargain basement Wi-Fi connection. The other great thing that kind of ties into that is if you're like me and have friends who are literally all over the country or all over the world, you can play with them on systems like Roll20 or Fantasy Ground, and be able to, get together on a Friday night and enjoy being with your friends, even though you're halfway across the world from each other. I think that is an amazing thing in this digital age that we live in.
Oh yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, there's one thing I don't know for sure, but I've heard things online that some people even say that especially for like tabletop games, kind of like D&D or Pathfinder, stuff like that, when you find a group online, do you feel like they're more consistent in like their time frame, or maybe a little bit more dedicated? Because me as a home, I guess a home DM, a lot of times most of the people I'm playing with are people I know in real life, and not all of them were like super into D&D. Like my roommate, he wasn't really into D&D until I basically forced him to play, and he started liking it. But I constantly have to work on like, hey, what is everyone's schedules? Because we like doing the like people like, oh, like I can't show up this time because like I'm out of town or something like that, or like basically I'm visiting family or I'm going around. And I guess I don't know, maybe online can kind of circumvent that a little bit. Like, granted, you still got to deal with schedules and people not being able to play, but you don't have the issue of like, I'm not in town this week, I'm just going to call in.
The biggest, you can literally quote unquote phone it in. But the biggest issue is time zones. I found with online play, especially if you're not in a time zone that is conducive to Dungeons and Flagons. For example, we're primarily a U.S. based server, although we do have players from all around the world, and we definitely do try to cater to everyone.
And I know, like, I even knew a guy in college. His D&D group was in Australia, so like almost every single time I saw him, he would be really tired, and it's because like, oh yeah, we were up until like 4 a.m. last night, like going through a dungeon, and like it can happen, but also like you said, it can make it so you can have friends or develop friendships with people you would never normally meet, but you're bonded through whatever online RPG system, or not even RPG, just whatever online game you're playing.
Yeah. For me personally, I'm a stay-at-home mom. So I don't get out of the house much. I have a 2-year-old. And I love her to death, but it limits the amount of like ability to connect with people my own age, or people even not even people my own age, but people who like the same things that I like. And being able to be part of a community, an online community like Dungeons and Flagons, has really kind of opened up, I guess, my social circle,
Oh
for
yeah.
lack of a better word. And I know that we're not the only community out there. I know that there are many others. And I think that, for people who may have a hard time getting out of the house, or may have a hard time um, just getting out of the house for whatever reason, whether it be a cranky 2 year old, a disabilities, or just not very social person. Just having that screen allows, just allows for a lot of connectivity, which I really enjoy. Although I'm not gonna lie, I do miss rolling dice.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I was about to say going I guess being the more team like there is something about physically rolling dice because I guess the thing
It's so
I just had
satisfying.
like rolling a fireball so good physically like hearing that dice roll and
Yeah,
most people
all
do
those dice, like those, 8d6 just jingling around in there, and you know that's going to be some big money.
yeah. And I could say like I guess like pros of like basically playing in person. The one big thing with me is when I DM and when I play, I like to just be expressive with my like basically with the way I act and stuff and the way I move is a lot of times. And I don't I guess I would say that, but I feel like it would be a lot of really hard to do that online when I feel like most people are just talking via audio or maybe just a webcam. But sometimes like I feel like when you're physically with people, you can basically kind of bounce off each other a little bit more. And also you don't have to deal with the issue of someone's talking and then someone wants to talk and you're like since you're not physically there, you can't like visually cue them like, hey, I want to talk, or as a DM, all the time I'm playing, and literally players raise their hand, and I'm like, and if I was doing it online, I probably would have noticed because just like webcams, or not if a webcam, unless they like message me and be like, hey, I'm trying to say something, but this bard has been talking for the past 20 minutes, and I like really, really, really want to like actually just disarm this trap. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
for what's the word? For one shots, definitely being able to those one shot modules that you can play. Definitely being able to just that's harder to online with the talking over one another because you don't have that established connection.
Yeah.
Campaigns, it becomes less so. The worst thing is the awkward pauses. Like that can be facilitated online, just sort of like you as a DM give them the setup, give them the description, and then ask them what they do, and there's like just 30 seconds of nothing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. And
you're just waiting
oh,
and
you're just
waiting.
waiting on them all that stuff. Uh, I guess another thing is like I said, I'm looking at stuff I wrote down, but another thing is like you were saying like, oh, you just need internet connection, you're good to go. But the benefit of playing Ice in person is, oh, the power's out, self perception's still good. Hey, group, you want to come out and play? We don't. Basically, it's with like a lot of games, like you don't need electricity. All you need is your imagination, and then I want you to put like a little rainbow animation around right now. So just
Imagination.
imagination. No, but yeah, I like I know like I said I prefer playing in person. But another big thing is, especially with my group, is people love physical handouts. Like I stole a little bit from Mass Mercer, but whenever I pre-roll a magic item, I type it up on a sheet of paper on some nice cardstock, and I cut it out. And whenever the party I'm like, oh, I described the item. I'm like, here you go, and I hand them that sheet of paper and that look on their face when they like, this is something I can have and keep. Doing all that is really good, and not even like I think also something that could be a little I don't know maybe a little bit harder online is puzzles. Like I
Puzzles are a
feel like
challenge, yeah.
yeah, because especially if it's like a group puzzle, like say literally it's like literally the DM literally buys a writes like a phrase on it, and then basically throws it out and gives it to players. Doing that online, I feel like it will be a little bit harder, but it's one of
Yeah.
those, I don't know. I guess for audience interaction, like I guess if anybody has actually done puzzles online, is there any time you're like, oh, this is way better, or is like honestly not much of a difference? Like I've
Yeah,
done puzzles once online.
it definitely is a make or break thing when it comes to online. You have to have a DM that knows what they're doing.
Yeah,
Um,
but
I
if you're doing like a
mean
if a
that
dungeon crawl,
and
mm,
I'm not saying anything against the imagination because I'm an imaginative person myself. But one of the things that I really like about online is being able to translate those 2D maps into something more visceral, something with a little bit more three dimension that has more of a visual element to it. Not saying that
yeah,
you still should they players still shouldn't use their imagination because they most certainly should. But
yeah,
I'm a visual person myself. I'm a very visual person, so if I don't have visuals to just sort of help and aid me along the way. It's a little bit harder for me, but that's me personally. I know everybody's different.
yeah.
Um,
I don't
but
know.
I mean,
Yeah,
and another great thing about online play too is, again, as much as I love the satisfaction of rolling dice, you don't need to
yeah.
buy dice. You don't need to print out character sheets. I
Oh yeah,
mean,
it's
and
definitely a lot cheaper online.
yeah, it's a lot cheaper, especially Roll20. You get if you're just a player, you can get the free subscription. We are not sponsored by Roll20, by the way, but just using them as the example, that you can just get online for free. It's a free system, and all you need is a character sheet, which is basically the same thing that you would have for a printout version, just digital. And the great thing about that too is it can't be lost, can't be destroyed. I mean, like the internet could eat it, but the chances of that happening. Again, I live with a 2-year-old, so like minimizing destruction is part of my everyday life,
Oh
I
yeah.
guess.
Oh no, that makes sense. And we definitely focused a lot about like kind of like I guess some of the mechanics. But I guess how do you feel about groups? Because one thing is I actually had to deal with a little bit recently was I feel like in person sometimes if you have a bad group, you can feel like you're kind of stuck. I talked to like a lot of people who were like, what should I like? How should I play like online or in person? So, and I'm like, oh well, like I'm like always like, well, I prefer in person. They were like, well, I don't really know anybody around that can play games, or in the situation that they're like, I only know one group of people that play,
Hmm.
but I have issues with one of the players. Maybe it's personal things, maybe just like stuff they do in games, or maybe it's just like the group doesn't click. And I feel like people who don't maybe not necessarily have access to internet all the time, or that if you like, yeah, if you get in a bad group, you
You're
feel like
yeah,
you're
you're
kind of
kind of screwed.
yeah, you're kind of screwed, which which is unfortunate. It's one of the things that is kind of we have to take as a truth in D&D or D&D and other tabletop games like it is not always you can't always have a group that works perfectly all the time
You're gonna
and
have those bad experience, as is in life. Bad
yeah,
experiences do happen. But
yeah,
it also,
and
I actually think bad experiences can teach you a lot, not only when it comes to tabletop gaming, but in life in general, just from the fact that I guess you kind of know what your standards are as a person. If that,
yeah.
I don't want to sound pretentious when I say that, but like you have sort of that, what what sort of quality of play you're looking for when it comes
Yeah.
to things and play.
Oh yeah, and that's definitely something like we could definitely go in more depth if people are interested. But
Hmm.
like, how do you establish? Like, how do you basically not have the awkward situation of I don't know, like a stereotypical situation. The bard tries to seduce like the dragon, and everyone's like, I'm not really okay with that. And especially, no matter what, if you're a player person, like you might be uncomfortable. But that's definitely something we should touch on a
Oh
different episode.
yeah, totally. I mean, we could go into a whole entire episode on player comfort. And please, down in the description below, we're gonna have all of our questions as well as any relevant links. We're also gonna have down in the description our Google form where you can submit questions yourself. to this podcast, and we will most certainly answer them. We try to pick questions that kind of are along the same theme. But yeah, totally. If you have a question for us that you want answered or you want some insight into, we're not professionals like Matt Mercer, but we do have a little bit of experience, and we are more than happy to share that experience and that insight with you guys.
Yeah.
So you think maybe we should go on to the second question? We do have one more question for this episode, and it's from Cactus. I love that name. Cactus, that's a good. We got some good names. Where does one start in Adventurers League?
I get this question so many times.
Well,
Like,
you are a mentor on Dungeons and Dragons, so I would assume yes, you would probably get it a lot.
oh yeah, I get it all the time, and that actually ties into the previous question because a lot of times, like I said, like if you had a bad group, people feel like they're kind of stuck if they're especially doing a homebrewing game. But honestly, if you don't know anybody that basically you don't personally know anybody that plays games in your area, Adventures League is basically where you start. It's how
Oh
I
yeah.
got back into D&D after like a 3 to 4 year hiatus.
Ooh.
And because of Adventures League, I actually got back in homebrew and actually have a really fun home group that I play with. Actually, multiple
So
groups.
one can lead into the other. They're not mutually exclusive. I feel like
Yeah,
that's like every like people are always seem to be in two camps, whether they're Adventures League or homebrew or
yeah,
but they really, it all at the end of the day, you're playing the game that you like to play, and that's
yeah,
what really counts.
yeah. And that's how. So the first things first, to answer the question of where does one start Adventures League. Uh, basically, first thing everyone should do, even if it's online or in person, you should go to basically the Adventures League website, which is dnd.wizards.com/player events /organized play. The link will be in the description. But basically, you go to that website, and as soon as you click on that website, you're kind of basically it seems like really wordy, and this is like a lot of information. But basically, it kind of explains how generally D&D works, and or D&D Adventures League works for those of you who might be more used to homebrew, and also how you can organize games yourself. But the big thing, especially for those of you who like to want to play in person, basically at the top there's a find a store near you. You just when in doubt, you just put in your zip code and it will list all stores that are basically WPN stores, which is some Wizards of the Coast thing that basically stores officially run Wizards of the Coast are registered to run
I think
Wizards games.
I think WPN stands for Wizard Play Network. Do not quote me on that, but I'm feeling I heard
Yeah,
that before. But anyways,
yeah.
continue.
Yeah, so yeah, you basically you go there and essentially you find the stores near you. Sometimes you want to pick the store closest to you, or you just want to pick any stores at all. But it gives a list. Sometimes they have when they run games, but when in doubt, if you find a store that is you feel like is pretty good, call the store during regular business hours and be like, "Hey, I saw online that you guys run Adventures League. What days do you normally play?" Because some stores their websites might be outdated or they might have listed Adventures League, but they no longer run it. Basically, when in doubt, contact the store, and also, especially those of you like going back to, we all know D&D is expensive stuff like that, but with Adventures League at least, you don't have to worry as much about having all the books because most people do. But the big thing is you also want to know if there's any like table fees, especially if you're playing at a store, because some D&D doesn't bring a lot of money to a lot of stores, unfortunately. So always be aware that some stores may have certain policies about running organized events like Adventures League or Pathfinders. It's like Pathfinder Society and Shadowrun Missions, I think is the things I
Hmm.
think of. But when in doubt, that's what specifically Adventures League. I don't personally know where you can find about Shadowrun Missions or Pathfinder, but I guess we'll try to contact people on their server to see if there's any official links on that. Also,
Yep.
for online purposes,
Yeah.
I'm right, friendly. You can just go to Roll20, and if you go to like the search function, advanced search, and you specifically had it to be like one-shot adventures and organized by D&D, I think people actually just publicly post Adventure League games
Yeah.
on
There is
websites like
there is a
that.
tag Adventurers League. That's how I found Dungeons and Flagons. Actually, is they were tagged under Adventurers League, and that's what I was personally looking for when
Yeah.
I started out doing D&D, which I've only been doing D&D. I'm not an expert on D&D. I've only been playing for about a year and a half,
Yeah.
a DM for about 8 months. So I am not the be all end all expert on these things. Another really good thing that you should definitely do, especially if you're getting into Adventures League, again, links will be in the description below, is you should go and join the official Facebook pages. There is actually official Facebook pages for both players and DMs. There's also actually a magic item trading page as well.
Which
So
we will
they,
get into that for those of you
yeah,
who don't.
we'll get into that. If you guys ask a question about it, we will answer more about that. But long story short, on that part is uh, that they are great places to find not only asking your questions about Adventures League and getting them answered by the actual Adventures League administrators, the guys who run Adventures League, and they're pretty darn cool people from my experiences. But also there people post conventions, stores post looking for players or when they're hosting events. Um, the other thing too is to join an online server. Discord has a lot of online servers that have Adventures League. Dungeons and Flagons is one of the top ones that provides. But we are not the only one. There are other servers out there that you can most definitely go to. I've played on a couple of them, and they are pretty good. I think Moonsea Pub is one. AL Guildhall is another. I can't think of any more off the top of my head right now,
Yeah. But
but
when in doubt,
yeah,
you basically you Google it around, and it's I won't say it's easy to find, but basically when in doubt, ask around, or like I said, ask your friendly local game store is essentially what it is, because those guys, all the stores are pretty awesome. But
yeah.
but yeah, so and like I said, the big thing also is Adventures League is a little different than Homebrew. Big thing is things are more rules as written. So
Hmm.
you kind of have to follow what the book says, which positive, negative, positive. You don't have the situation of someone saying, "Well, my DM lets me do this." Negative. Some people view that as limiting creativity or things like that, but that's something like talk for hours about. But the big thing is for you to
Hmm.
understand how, especially if you already know how to build a character in D&D, you should download the DM and Players packet, which is on the DM's Guild. Which the DM's Guild, for those you don't know, is this great store for where people publish adventures for Adventures League. For I want to say they range somewhere between $3 to $5, and also this is where all the rules for how Adventures League is run gets posted.
Hmm.
Essentially, you can also buy books there. I'm not personally about books, so
Yeah.
that like
As
again
well
will
as
be in the
it
description.
is a great source also of just homebrew material in general. There's some
Yeah.
really good stuff on there. I haven't even scratched the surface of what is
Yeah.
available.
But when in doubt, for those of you who know how to play, like I said, it's both the DM and Players packets they're a little lengthy, but they're fairly straightforward. So for those of you who are going to be players, just read through the player packet and understand basically I say restrictions, but basically the structure you have to build your character. So basically everyone can be fair. The big thing is, I'm sorry, old school D&D players, but in Adventures League, you don't roll for stats. You use a point buy or
Hmm.
standard array system, and basically you got to do all that. But yeah, it's everything you need to know is basically listed there, or in the documents, or the documents that then link to other sources. Or
Yep.
if you're absolutely confused and have no idea what's going on, you can always just go to one of the groups, and someone there knows the packet like the back of their hand, and you're
Yep.
good to go. But
It's
yeah,
like
but for those of you, yeah,
that.
or for
That.
those of you who do not understand how to build characters, and you don't maybe have time to basically download and read the packet, but you still have, especially if you're going in person, going to a store, I I always tell everyone I ever run to is, if, for example, game store, like super awesome game store, runs games at 1 p.m. on Saturday, show up 30 minutes early. When in doubt, there's always people there who kind of show up to chit chat, kind of talk amongst the D&D friends, and just go up to someone or even the store people and like, hey, I'm here to play Adventures League, but I don't really understand how it works, or I need to make a character. And usually the store owner will direct you towards someone who usually organizes D&D at the store, and when in doubt, someone will sit you down to help you make a character.
Yeah,
Sometimes they
I
might
will
hand you
say
a
this.
pre-gen, but
Yeah, I will say. Yeah, I was gonna say you could, or they will give you a pre-gen character, kind of get your feet wet, so you don't really have to sit there and do the numbers calculations yourself.
yeah,
But the greatest thing, at least I found about the Adventures League community, is they are, you know, on on average, they are very helpful people. They and we have other questions about getting even more into like character building, new characters that we're going to touch in other episodes coming up here. So we won't go too into depth there, but pretty much starting in Adventures League, you go to the websites recommended and listed. Join the Facebook page and just sort of see what's available, whether it's on an online on a server or in person at a store or a little bit of both. You
yeah,
don't need the greatest thing is you don't need the greatest thing about I think the greatest thing about Adventures League and organized play in general is that it is made so you can jump from one DM to another and not lose consistency and quality of play. You can take that character that you started out as a level 1 in a store and say he's level 5 now. Well, you can bring him online, have him play a couple sessions online, and go back to that store, and there will be no difference at all because we are all playing under the same rule set. We are all playing, the same game, and that is the biggest and best thing about Adventurers League is that it's organized play. It's meant to be transportable.
yeah. And especially those who I know a lot of people are interested in Adventures League because it's like they've heard of this game D&D, and someone told them, hey, try Adventures League. And those of you who are like, Adventures League, Homebrew's where it's at, I'm like, well, maybe you'll find a group of people at Adventures League that you really like, and you're like, hey, you guys want to do homebrew? And I feel like a lot of people will say, yes, I would love to do homebrew, because a lot of people I know, they've only really played Adventures League. But like I said, that's where it's a good place to start because
It's a good
everything's pretty
gateway drug.
decent. It's I guess gateway drug is a big thing, but like I said, for those of you who are like, so you feel like it's overwhelming, don't worry. Like we suggest reading the documents so you can understand a little bit more. But if you just go to a store or basically go online and be like, hey, I'm here to play, I don't really know anything, someone will contact you and basically explain the basic rules and hopefully not completely overwhelm you. But just understand, especially for those of you who like want to go to a store, try to show, especially if you need to make a character, try to show up a little bit early, because like I love running for new characters. I love running for brand new people in Adventures League, but it's a little disappointing when I'm literally starting an adventure I really want to run, especially might be a little bit higher tier because we have a group of regulars, and then 30 minutes into the game, someone shows up, says, hey, I'm here to play Adventures League. And I always try to be nice and include everyone. So sometimes we'd be like, if there's enough people at the table, I'll split off, run a game for the new people. But that means we basically had to disrupt the flow of play in order to get it. So basically, be aware that it is organized, and it being organized means there's certain expectations of when people are going to show up and when people are going to leave.
Yeah,
So,
it's
and like
common.
I said,
It's common courtesies. Common
yeah,
courtesies. I think that we can all sort of say that we expect in society in general. Just kind of like do unto others as you would like done unto you, sort of deal.
yeah.
Um,
But no,
Not
yeah,
to get all philosophical on you or anything,
but yeah, and like I said, and for those of you interested, like more compare and contrast in D&D Adventures League, and specifically for D&D and homebrew and basically organized play, we are going to talk about the different episode, and just we'll talk about season 8 later. For those of you who know what that means, we'll talk about it later.
we'll cross that bridge when we come. And
Yes.
that being said, if anybody has burning season 8 questions or wants to vent a little bit, get it off your chest, please, again, in the description down below, there's going to be the Google form sheet. Shoot us a question, and we are people like you. We are players. We are DMs. We love D&D. We love playing and telling stories. And we hope that this service, this little segment that we do, sheds a little bit of light and helps some people out. We're hoping.
All right.
Um, so you will see you guys next time. Until then, keep it easy. Don't may the dice gods be always in your favor because we know how cruel a mistress they can be.
All right. And what can people expect for the next episode?
Next episode, we're going to be talking about. Next episode is going to be about new player who dis. So we're going to get a little bit more into new player elements, hopefully, and talk a little bit about how we can better facilitate. Oh wait, no, that's not going to be our next episode. That's episode 3. Episode 2 is going to be recommendations. Basically, this kind of has to do with how we are just sort of recommendations for certain playstyles, certain class combos. We touched a little bit about the love-hate relationship that bards have in the D&D community. So stick tuned for that because that's gonna be a can of worms right there.
Oh yeah, definitely a can of worms.
All right, guys, you take it easy, and we will see you next time on Flagon Talk.
Bye.